Hi, I'm Mike Hughes. I'm founder of Next Level Training and inventor of the SIRT training pistol. Okay, so you got your pistol, you want to get training, you want to get better. This series is dedicated to you to give you the best content possible so your high volume training has the most value. So first place we want to start is grip and stance. Basically, when it comes to grip, our goal on the grip is to hold the pistol in a manner for really more our follow-up shots. Not our first shot out of the gates, but our second and third shot on down the line. Take your hand, take your strong hand, which is my right hand in this case, and I'm gonna have kind of what I call a C-clamp grip, all right? It's not a rope grip, it's not a rope grip with my fingertips, it's a C-clamp grip. I'm gonna have a C-clamp grip around the gun, and the back part here, I have a little bit of a cavity, okay? I'm gonna take that cavity and I'm gonna fill it with my palm. My palm, which is the thumb portion, all right, and the base of my thumb is going to fill that cavity. I'm going to have chest squeeze, press in that little gap, and then keep both of my fingers clamped in as such. Not a rope grip again, but just pressing in the forward part of the gun, okay, the SIRT training pistol. The back part, I have a little bit of a chest squeeze behind it, all right? So I'm filling this void, and I can feel the gun and it feels right. As I close my eyes, I point, I open up, I have a nice natural point of aim. Okay, with stance, basically, I put my fingers right in the crease of my hip and I want to pinch my fingers together. You see how the fingers get pinched together, all right? This keeps my knees over my toes and I'm balanced. Slight stagger, like when I bring my left foot back. A lot of people put their right foot back if they're strong hand, right hand strong dominant. So with sitting low, you basically have your stance and grip working together, all right? If you have a partner push you and make sure your stance is stable. Now that we have the basics of stance and grip down, we want to go to the range and validate it. Before you engage in high volume training with your SIRT, let's make sure that you are as dialed in as possible with your stance and grip. That's why we suggest taking your live fire gun and working a live target and making sure that you can handle recoil management. Because basically, we really manage recoil starting with our toes, working all the way up through our body into our nice, firm, steady grip. Now that we understand the fundamentals of stance and grip, let's go to the range and validate it. So basically, get your eyes and ear protection, go to a suitable range where you can shoot your live fire gun, and let's get in our stance and grip and send some rounds. We're going to do a rapid shot drill here. So basically, we're going to send as many rounds as we can, a full magazine, and we're going to see really how our stance and grip works. Okay, basically my objective here is to make sure that the sight is tracking up and back down into the notch, okay? And I don't want to get rocked backwards, so my stance has to be low and aggressive. I have to grab cloth with my toes and make sure I have a good lean. I want to have a good chest squeeze and get behind that gun. And also with the rapid shot drill, I don't want to be so tight with my fingers that I lose finger dexterity. Those are the basics. Those are the fundamentals. Obviously, there's a lot more depth we can go into, but that gets you started. All right, let's do that one more time, and then we're going to go over some common mistakes. Okay, now I'm trying to self-evaluate here and try to find any deficiencies, mainly in my stance and grip. And what I'm looking for is how much is that muzzle flipping? Am I seeing it really going high and coming back down and dipping to Never Never Land? Or is it just coming up and resting right back down to that notch? Is my whole body rocking? Some of this I can't really tell. So one thing I would strongly suggest is just get yourself a little flip cam, take it out to the range and film yourself. I mean, we're talking, this is so cheap nowadays, our out-of-pockets are less than 60 bucks total. So basically, just set it up, prop it at some suitable location and evaluate yourself. Look for your body rocking backwards, look for excessive muzzle flip, look for dipping the gun in the last shot, anticipating recoil, and coach yourself and send it to a qualified trainer and see what they have to say. So if I'm going to do a little self-evaluation, basically I'm going to set up this camera and see what I can record off myself. Let's try that again. Now, let's go over some common mistakes a lot of shooters have. One of the mistakes is standing too high and having too loose of a grip. When we first start shooting, basically a lot of us do stand high and we're balanced and such. But when we get into more dynamic shooting in any kind of scenarios, whether it's defensive or competition, it's better to kind of get lower and get behind that gun to a more athletic style position. So let me demonstrate some issues which you may have so you can help self-diagnose. Now, if we're standing too high, your multi-shot drill may look more like this. Now you can see in that string, I did not have a good grip. I was not behind the gun. The muzzle flip was way too excessive. And when it's that high, I just can't really track it and bring it back down on target. Because stance and grip is substantially about that follow-up shot, not that first shot. Okay, let's talk about another element in this multi-shot drill, and it is basically your trigger control. Now usually trigger control is not involved in multi-shot drills, it's usually just about your stance and grip. However, our trigger mechanics can have a deficiency which causes, generally if you're a right-hand shooter, to bring the shots off to the left, what we call 9 o'clock position. So to remedy that, this is where you can actually start getting your SIRT work in on the range. So basically, when we're on the range, we follow all rules of a live fire gun with the SIRT. No force on force whatsoever. Now what I'm going to do is point to the target and exercise the same drill. No recoil this time, no recoil, but my trigger mechanics should be completely dialed in. I want to see a nice clean green dot. So if I'm right in that upper zone, you see how that dot is nice and tight and there's no sweep. Some common errors you may see will look something like this. You can see the trigger mechanics in that case were more of that sweep. Or again, a right-handed shooter is going to tend to have that 9 o'clock sweep. So the fundamentals of trigger control is to take that tip of your finger and try to have linear straight line movement. I like to think about that tip of my finger coming straight back to this flesh in my hand. Okay, so let's try it again. Now let's look at some other common problems which you may have as a new shooter. One problem is just not having a correct grip, where you're gripping the gun so hard and you're coming in just with this clinch-like action that you're actually impeding your trigger mechanics. That's why, as we said before, have a C-clamp grip, okay? So I'm going to have a C-clamp grip on the front of the gun and on the aft of the gun. Chest pressure, and I'm going to get low. Mentally, I try to envelop myself around the gun, so I almost feel like I'm putting my whole aura, if you will, around the whole gun to control that muzzle. We don't want to over control the muzzle. We don't want to be forcing it downwards. We want to just provide the foundation for it to rise up and come back home. I look at that front sight like a crazy teenager, all right? If we try as parents to over control it, bad things happen and we start dipping it and it goes where we don't want it to go. If we just provide a foundation for that crazy teenager with our palm squeeze and a good stance, and we let it rise up, after sundown, we don't care, that muzzle flash, it can go out for a bit, but it comes back home after sundown. Right back in that notch, that's the home for it, okay? Let me show what it sounds like if your grip is just too much, you have too much fingertips grabbing that gun. Okay, that didn't sound very pretty. It sounded very choppy. I didn't have good fluid trigger mechanics there. Okay, so I got to get low, get behind that gun, get a chest squeeze, get ring finger engagement on the front, settle into it, and have enough relaxation in these front part of our muscles so my trigger mechanics can be activated. So I want to have more, I want to think about grabbing the gun more from my chest than my hands, so my trigger finger can be fluid to do its job. All right, let's try it again. Okay, there you have it. So we just burned through, I don't know, maybe up to 100 rounds. And you gotta be thinking like, well, I thought I was just gonna save money with the SIRT pistol and ammunition. Well, you are, believe me. But remember, our goal is perfect practice. Once you get your stance and grip validated, now we can go back and see how that feels and work it with your SIRT training pistol. Now we can go back and we can train in high volume all our other skill sets of our draw, our reloads, our target transitions, identifying different targets and representing on those targets, our body movement, our deceleration of the gun, of finding that target, snapping our eyes, driving the gun and decelerating it with trigger control and brake. It goes a lot of details. It basically works like this. The tools are simple, whether it's your live fire gun or your dry fire gun. But what we can do with the simple tools and the basic fundamentals is almost endless. All right, my friends, train hard, train smart. Hope to see you all in the range. All right, let's talk a little bit about gun handling. Mainly, let's go into the draw. If you purchase one of our full performance kits, then you have a belt, a holster, and some mag pouches. These are some fundamental tools which you can use just to basically put stuff when you're not using the gun, okay? But we gotta get to the gun. So the draw is one of the most fundamental elements of first getting to the gun. We'll discuss from just the holster on the hip, but the principles really apply to any type of carry scenario. Basically what we want to achieve with the draw is, first, let's establish somewhat of a stance, all right? Now we can fall into our stance while our hands are moving, but to cheat things at first, let's get in some kind of a reasonable athletic stance. Now, here's a trick. Let's drive our fingertips, all right? Don't do any excess movement. Just try to drive your fingertips to the gun. As you can see, that the fingertips are going to lead everything else. And I have this characteristic way of bringing this thumb to try to lead the charge up and around the gun. So this is the first motion. Your strong hand, the fingertips drive up, thumb pointing to your side. The weak hand comes up more to your waist. Not real high, not pressed in, just relaxed, about a 45, maybe 60-degree angle, just like that. As your thumb comes up, all right, we want to now drive the base of your thumb into this base of the gun right here. So we come up, we drive, we release it. The ring finger on my left hand, my support hand, is under the trigger guard, and I present out. All right? That's really the fundamentals of the draw. What I don't want to see is a lot of unnecessary movement. We don't want to see this hand, your support hand, sitting idle, so it comes out and then comes out and meets it. That's another common mistake. We also don't want to see basically coming out and presenting to an improper stance. We already worked hard on developing our stance and grip with the live fire drill. Now when we get into our gun handling, we got to incorporate those motor neuron movements with our ability to get to that final position. All right. Okay, so let's just review again the basics of the draw. Drive the fingertips, weak hand along the stomach. Drive that palm, that base, into the front part of the pistol. Withdraw the pistol, fingers not on that trigger. Have the index finger slide underneath the trigger guard and present out to the target. And when it's an appropriate muzzle alignment, you can start prepping that trigger onto that target and break that shot as soon as you have what we call acceptable sight picture. As soon as those sights are good enough on the target that you feel comfortable that bullet's going to strike where it needs to be. Alright, let's touch quickly on a reload. Basically the principle of a reload is to get one magazine out of the gun, retrieve a second magazine, insert the second magazine into the gun, and reestablish your grip and stance. It's really that simple, but mastering it takes quite a bit of time and expertise. So here are the fundamental steps. In one simultaneous movement, drop the gun in front of your workspace and press the mag release. And pressing the mag release, the magazine will drop. With minimal movement, bring your left hand and drive the fingertips back to your second magazine. Withdraw the magazine, and here you can either look at the mag well or basically have awareness of your finger, your pointy finger, and your pinky finger, and bring them together. When you bring them together, insert the magazine fully with the palm of your hand and reestablish your grip. I prefer bringing the gun down in this workspace and bringing my elbow towards my chest, or if I was wearing kit, on top of that kit. So basically, it's a very fluid motion. Now, for time management purposes, I will do 5 reloads with an empty mag well where I'm still hitting the button, but I'm not wasting time picking up a magazine. But don't do too many of those because you can be cheating yourself and causing a training scar. So, after the 5th magazine change, I will leave a magazine in the mag well and then basically train dropping a mag to make sure I'm not cheating myself when I hit that mag release. So you can keep training your mag changes until they're as fluid as possible. And remember, don't get too caught up in just doing the same type of drill in the same body position. Change it up. Basically start in one position and work to another position. Try to work your lateral movement in. So work your draw, ba 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 ba. Basically, train as many different positions as possible so you're not just so specific in one type of shooting platform. After you feel comfortable with your stance and grip, have fun with your training. Feel free to make apparatuses to work your various skill sets in high volume. This apparatus is great for working awkward shooting positions. And you can work your body position to the nth degree. Whew. And then, when you're on the range, validate with live fire and integrate recoil management. In the end, have fun with your training. Train safe, be smart about it, train hard, train smart. Hope to see you all on the range sometime.